There we go. Welcome. First AT Town Hall of the year. We'll see what kind of group we get. I don't know how many people will join before um, I guess most people kick off in September. I know some people have probably already started. If you're new to the town hall, the format is pretty loose. This is pretty much it. Come on in, ask questions, make comments, suggestions, discussion points, whatever you want to do. We leave it wide open. We do these every week. Again, if you've never participated in our town hall, it happens every week. Every Monday, we have a rotating cast of characters as people find time in their calendar to join us. That's wonderful. And we'll be here throughout the year. So I'm glad we're getting a nice group all of a sudden. Irene, how's things with you?
They're okay. How about you?
Oh, I can't complain. I can't complain. Are you back at school already?
We start our, PD sessions on Friday, but I'm in ahead of time to get stuff ready.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. That's a good deal. And hi to everybody else. Hey, Lori, Naomi, what's up? So again, I'll leave it loose. Hi, Lori. How are you? I love phones, and Kelly had her phone on, so it, like, as she rotates it, it switches her orientation, which always throws me off when I see that. It makes me laugh. So what's happening? Did we get a chance to kind of decompress over the summer? Did you get a chance to not do work for a little bit?
What? No, you're good. Hi, guys. I'm actually decompressing now. I'm with the grandkids.
Oh,
so
awesome.
somebody
Very
runs
good.
through.
I see there's like people behind you. There's the dog behind you. It's great. It's
Next
awesome.
week it'll be back to normal.
Back to normal. I hear you. I had before this morning, I had forgotten that we said we were going to start this early. I thought we were going to start next week, but popped up in my calendar. So here we are, which is fine. That's okay. I'm all for it. As we start to get ourselves ready for the year as it kicks off, what's some of the top priorities on your lists to get done as your program kicks off? Always curious what people kind of prioritize as their first thing they're going to address when they get back.
Getting devices out to kids.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. What's the process for that typically?
Pardon?
What's the process for that? Like, what's that look like?
Well, it's going to look different this year because we've been a Chromebook district, and we've had old iPads to use, and now we're switching. We're still Chromebook, but we switched to Surface Pros Go. Okay. And we use kind of universal, what's it called? Specific language first system. What is it? I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, so all kids trial the same product for the first two trials. For the first two trials, and then if neither of those work, then we start going through a feature match. So one of the trials is cough drop. So I've spent a big part of the summer figuring out how to do cough drop scanning with a plug-in switch, because we have too much trouble with Bluetooth, etc. Yeah. And I finally accomplished it today, so I was really happy because really Surface Pros use USB-C ports, and switches come on regular USB ports. And they need downloaded software and all kinds of things. And I was trying to minimize the complication. So this year, anyways, to answer your question, I have a list of the kids who have devices who don't have their own personal ones. And as the software comes in, I'll load up everybody's program, whether it be language, cough drop or pro, whatever it is, and then check it out through inventory and get it out to the teachers and the kids. And then also prioritize doing the training to, we're working on kind of a universal core curriculum that I'm hoping that preschool and elementary will implement. So it's a core word a week.
Mm-hmm.
And hoping that I can get that going. Those are my big challenges to start.
That's awesome. And Irene, remind me, is it just you?
Yeah.
I thought so, but I wasn't positive. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think there might be somebody who's 0.2 with me this year.
Okay.
But I was supposed to have that person last year and it didn't work.
Okay.
So, and we have what, 26,000 kids.
Has there been any discussion at the district level about?
We have all new administration.
Oh, well, that might not be a bad thing. Actually, that might be an okay thing.
So I'm having a discussion about it today.
Yeah, that idea of just, even if it's just identifying staff in some of these buildings that could be supports.
And that I've done. I mean, I've done that on my own. Like
Yeah.
I know which of our SLPs are really strong and which of our classroom teachers really get it. And so I automatically have those supports. And I've gotten approval to have 2 afternoon professional developments a month. So one's going to be AAC once a month and one's going to be AT once a month.
Nice.
So, and they'll be later in the afternoon, so anybody on staff or the community can attend. So I've been getting to implement a whole bunch of new stuff this year.
Yeah, that's great. And that might help you find some of those champions in some of those other schools, right? You start seeing these people show up to these trainings and you get some people that have an interest
Right.
be able to loop in.
Yeah, and hopefully I've been hoping to do this for 3 years. So the project core modules, and I'm hoping to have the SLPs run that for me.
Awesome. That'd be great.
Yeah. So that's going to be, and I want that to end up being weekly so I can just get it in and get it done.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. And any of that capacity you could build allows you to focus your energies on something else, bigger picture stuff, as opposed to this constant running.
Yeah. I think because this place didn't have a system, I've been focusing a lot on big picture anyway. So we could just how can you make this so one person can meet needs? Which is why I've gone down this universal path, like trying to find curriculum that everybody can use and work with all systems.
Yeah.
Trying to find systems that all kids can, almost all kids can benefit, like a tiered model.
Yeah. Well, you'd have to. I mean, in reality, I mean, your system is too big for just one person, right? So you'd have to find some kind of way to do that and bring those people in.
Right. And I mean, this is the start of my 4th year, I think.
Yeah.
And I feel good about the increase in kids with devices and kids with ability to talk, ability to communicate, because it's grown a lot.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, that's definitely awesome. That's great, right? To be able to see that. That could be your great way to hook some of those new administrators too, is highlight some of those success stories. Like look, these are students that previously were not able to effectively communicate, and now they can.
And look at the student is now in inclusion so much of the day because they can communicate.
Right, exactly. They have these supports that have provided them a level of independence that allows them to move in this included track throughout the day, which is awesome. Yeah,
I'm really happy. I'm really happy to see it, and hoping that we get a bigger department so we can do more.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Irene, you just validated everything I've been thinking about this summer. Thank you.
Tell
I
us
only have
about it, Lori.
350. I only have 350 to deal with. You've got, I'm like, oh my God. But
Well,
yeah,
that's total students in the district, not on
yeah,
my.
well, and that's my total too at the moment. Well, actually, we don't have quite 350 right now. We still have a whole bunch at home. But
But this group has been really helpful for me because I'll
yeah, same.
bring out an idea that I feel like,
Same.
man, this might be stupid, and I get that verification a lot.
Right, exactly.
That
That's why I've actually passed it on to some of my colleagues who may show up in September. But yeah, where are you, Irene?
I'm in Vancouver, Washington.
Okay.
And yeah, where are you?
I'm based out of Cherry Hill, New Jersey.
Oh,
at the moment I'm in Apex, North Carolina, but yeah. I'm based.
Sorry to hear that. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, you're probably the same temperature I am right now, so yeah.
I used to live in Havertown, Pennsylvania.
Really? I live in Warminster.
So. Oh, okay.
Yep, yeah. I know exactly. One of my best friends lives in Havertown. That's funny. Okay.
Yeah. Really funny. Much better to live out there. Now I moved back to the West Coast.
Well, thank you, Irene. You just made my day.
Like, totally. Lori, what do you?
Feel free to contact me.
Yeah, and what are you thinking, Lori? Like, what's your? Because I know you're in a bit of a different system.
I'm in a different system. I'm in adult services and employment, so I've got the I get everybody after they leave school, so I'm the over 21s. But we have we have more than 3, but I'm on 3 right now, and you know, just trying to find out what devices they have and everything, because I was hired the day the world shut down. So I've worked my job for 15 months without even knowing a person. So, you know, right now I'm probably on month 3 of my probation, maybe, you know, kind of a year later. And we don't even have everybody in because New Jersey keeps changing its adult services COVID stuff, as everybody else is probably also going through. So that's been interesting, bouncing in and out, telehealth versus in person, and they're telehealth one day, in person the next, back to it's ridiculous. Anyway, I'm looking at Ground Zero. I am an entity of 1, although I have an amazing speech therapist who works with me and an amazing group that really want to move forward, and people are starting to buy in, but you know, we've got a long way to go. So I'm looking to figure out, I really want to do Project Core with these people because I think it's the right thing for them to, because they're not in a school, you know, and a lot of these kids aren't with their families, not their kids. A lot of these individuals aren't with their families either because they have moved out. And, you know, I'm thinking Project Core might be universal enough to go across centers to homes to residents.
Yeah, to community, to trickle. The whole thing.
Right. Now I'm looking at 3-year, 5-year plan. So my last job, I had a 2-year plan and I accomplished it in 5. So I'm just going right for the 5. But that's, you know, right now we've got people popping up with devices on a weekly basis now, you know, as they're coming back, and the staff is calling us saying, it's not working. We're like, well, what is it? What do they have? And we have no records. I have a success story that I'm kind of proud about, and I might cry. I have a gentleman, almost 10 years out of school, iPad shattered, no records, no nothing. We were able to suck his user out of the iPad, thank God. But it was a 60 user, and he hasn't used it in 1.5 years. And it was all different color. It was like deep purple and black. And I'm like, yeah, no. So I dropped down to 24. I blanked everything out, and we started with cards first. I had no idea. I had no idea if he had any clue or if he could do it or whatnot. And we started with cards and a similar PEX thing. He loves books. So I got some of those 1st and 2nd level National Geographic animal readers. And I made, you know, turn the page, all done, more, you know, and then the books. And we started out real slow. And don't you know, in the first try, he's picking up. Okay, so I did that for 3 tries. And then I pulled out the iPad and the 24 and I blanked it down, not knowing. And he picked it up in 5 minutes. So we've expanded now. We did colors and body parts matching. I'm like, what is this? Tell me on the thing. And he picked it. I had to spread him out a little bit, but he got it immediately. So this week we started with his work tasks, because they have work tasks, and you know, showed him once and he picked it. I'm like, okay, you know, so he's going places. He's going
awesome.
from nothing to
Yeah.
like, okay, so the iPad's been ordered for him. He already owns, it's privately owned, so he already owns the app. So I'm going to stay with that app, and and I think I might be able to bump him up past 24. But at least if I can get him into 24, I can give him a lot of things.
Mhm.
If I can give somebody a 24 user, I feel somewhat accomplished, because 24 allows them to do a lot more than 12. So that's my happy story for the summer.
That is a
That
happy
was all
story.
summer. Yeah, we have
That is
one other
good.
success, which I don't know if anybody else has tried. We have the speech therapist I'm paired with is amazing. I love her. Drives me crazy, but I love her. And she has a lot of dysphagia, because where I am has had several choking incidents and a whole bunch of stuff. So they brought her in for that and for the AAC. And we have one young lady, nothing has worked. Somebody has to just sit with her and keep cueing her, but she works in our cafe. So, they can't sit there the whole time with her. She does eat a little earlier so that she's not in all the chaos. But we tried a two-way walkie-talkie, Joanne's Fabrics, where they're talking on their walk. We tried a system like that with her. And so her person is over at the checkout aisle, keeping an eye on everybody there. And she's over there eating. And she's just putting the cues in a soft spoken voice through the headset. She's loving it. So now my speech therapist wants to try it for 2 other people in our building. So just an idea.
I like that
She's
idea.
like, we have to publish, we have to bring this idea to the world. I said, we will.
Yeah.
Not today, but we will.
Yeah. That idea of kind of a remote support, right?
Right. Just a little
bit.
in your ear, not loud, just a little bit. She just needs a little. We tried everything. We tried picture schedules. We tried a little tent card. She just can't keep we've put it into a rhythm, and she just can't. And she even my speech therapist even chunked it down, because the report came back with a 15-step process to take a bite and a sip. And she's like, oh, we can't do that here. That'll just, yeah. So she chunked it down, figured it out. We came up with this, and it's working.
I love it. I love those kind of creative solutions. I saw that in a classroom with an aide, and her and the student she was supporting were communicating through the comments on a Google Doc.
Ooh.
So the student was doing work at his desk on his Chromebook, and his aide was sitting in the back of the class. And if he had a question or if he got stuck, he wrote a comment in the Google Doc, and she
love it.
And she just typed back, and then she didn't have to be at his desk with him. He could sit with his friends, and he was kind of independent. But when he needed that support, it was there as close as his Google Doc, and just type it in real fast. I thought
that is awesome. Idea. Oh, and my 3D printer hopefully comes this week.
Ooh, that's exciting too. That's really exciting.
I have 2 blind individuals with no communication. I can't wait till I can crank that baby up. Don't know if it'll work, but
at least a good try, right?
Yes, there's my happiness for the summer.
Those are awesome. Those are very good. I love it. Successes, plans for the new year. What's anybody else got? Anybody else got something that you're itching to get started with? The new year is here. Hey, Kelly.
Hey. I'm kind of itching to get into classrooms to do a lot of coaching in some of our more self-contained classrooms.
Nice.
And preschool. That's kind of one of my big focus. That, and we finally have the go ahead to bill for devices. So that, and getting that started for several kiddos.
That's great. Kelly, where are you at? I don't remember.
I am in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Okay. Awesome. Very good. That's great. What's your system like?
I just drove through Chattanooga, Tennessee yesterday, Kelly, on my way home from Alabama.
We have, we're a district of about 44,000 students, and there are, we have 4 positions on our assistive technology team. One is currently vacant, and one she's having some medical things, so she's kind of off right now. And the other does a lot of administration.
Okay.
but she also oversees the vision department.
Mhm.
So she really doesn't do a lot of, she does some of our AT things, but right now, so it's just me until we fill that position and the other person comes back.
I see Irene shaking her head. She's like, yeah, I feel you. I got you.
I feel your pain.
Yeah, it's so tricky. I mean, and I know we talk about this all the time, this idea of effectively delivering service. And are these opportunities where we are a team of one or a team of two? Are we setting ourselves up for failure sometimes? Is that we can't do anything but just chase the next fire to put out sometimes?
Mhm.
But sometimes I think when I've been at places that have had bigger teams, the classroom teams, et cetera, kind of relinquish responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
When I come in, it's like, guys, this is what I can do for you, so I need you to do, and kind of work a system of where I'm fading back and they're more independent. So I've gotten a couple teams that go through the process without just putting me on the paperwork so I can see what's happening.
Yeah, and maybe that's the model, right, Irene? It's that idea of I was almost going to say fading in and out as necessary, and maybe that's more aligned with what I'm thinking.
Yeah, sometimes I get frustrated that we have to be a whole nother section,
Yeah,
like that it's just not more common knowledge.
right.
Because it's basically implementation is good teaching, good modeling.
Right.
So if we're just like there, and because we can show them equipment and things they've never seen before, but they get that they're still just teaching. So we're not mystery world anymore.
Well, yeah, it's not this unknown entity or little known entity that just kind of rolls in real fast, does something, and then kind of moves on.
Right.
And then people are like, all right, well, what just happened there? I don't know. It seems important because it's not here anymore, right? It's very mysterious and I don't necessarily understand it, but you're right. I mean, I think a lot of it is so straightforward that, if we had opportunities to do more of like what Kelly said, if you're going to focus on coaching and providing some mentoring and giving some support to staff, that's our path to be, I was almost going to say less needed, but that's not what I mean. Less running around to solve everything and put every fire out.
One of the things that's really helped us, and I think I actually shared this, the one and only other time I joined the town hall, because I just didn't have time last year, was 2 years ago, we partnered with Tech Goes Home. We have a chapter in Chattanooga, and we had been doing it for a year with parents. So we were getting parents trained, 15 hours of training. And with that, they received an iPad and the communication app that their student was using. And then we went back to Tech Goes Home and said, we could make even more progress if we had teachers and SLPs on board. And so they found funding for us. So last summer we taught, I think we had 33 teachers and SLPs in that class. So they had 15 hours of training, where we do a little bit of literacy. We talk about AAC implementation. And then this summer we had another 31 or 32. So now we have 60 plus teachers and SLPs that have more training and more knowledge to share. And then they tell their friends who are like, I want to go to that class too.
Right. And that's how it starts, right? I mean, I think that's the wave that you hope happens, is that you start a little bit and then that little bit becomes a little more and more and more and more, and suddenly it's a bunch. And what you're doing throughout, Kelly, is you're demystifying the whole process. You're not making it feeling so complex and unknown. It's kind of, you're giving people this kind of foundational knowledge about these different areas. You know, it's literacy and communication and implementation and, you know, talk of consideration and what that means, and building in some experiences of understanding kind of the range of technology that might be out there. The whole point is to get people comfortable enough that they might try something before they reach out to you, right? And just try anything. And really a lot of that comes down to having people comfortable enough with asking questions to dig into the problem. Right? Not everybody has to be a tech expert. I don't know if any of us would call ourselves tech experts. I would not call myself a tech expert, but I'm also not afraid to poke around something. And in a lot of people's minds, that's what makes you a tech expert, because you're willing to pick up something you've never seen before and just poke around at it. And we're not going to get everybody there, and that's okay. But getting people to have a good, solid understanding of eating the tech that's in their own environment. You know, you go into some of these classrooms where people all have Chromebooks and they've never thought to look in the settings. Like, and they've never dug in just a little bit. And if we can build that kind of comfort level to where at least they'll try, you know, this is where, you know, we try to get staff to be a little bit more like the kids. The kids are not afraid to poke something. And so we hopefully find this way to get staff a little bit more comfortable, but give them some basic kind of understanding of how technology can support different kinds of learners could go a long way for them helping to solve their own issues that pop up. You know, and Shannon wrote it in the chat, building systemic support, right? Is how do we do that? And what does that look like? That we're not just running around doing the same thing over and over again. Networking, Shannon, I think you're right? I think it is. It's networking. It's giving little bite-sized pieces of information first so that people start to build kind of a knowledge bank that they can pull from, that they feel like these things are not so foreign to them, right?
That's what we did in my old position. I did lunch with Lori and we did 15 minutes with, you know, whatever we were, all right, smartboards was one of the things we had to bring in, and we had the Macs and stuff. 15 minutes. And then the next week they come back, all right, tell me what worked, tell me what didn't, let's fix it. Here's a new item to try, go break it, bring it back. And it worked. And that's what I did with when we were all home with the therapeutic activity service specialists at my current job. They all wanted to learn sign language. And while I am not the bestest, I happen to have a lot of background in that. So we taught sign language for 20 minutes every Tuesday at lunchtime for, you know, and we also, I made videos for them because they wanted videos, you know, and the videos live on Google Docs now. And now they're referring people up to those videos. So, and they're using it. Are they beautiful? No, but is it working? Yes. Yeah. So that's, little bits. And that's what I'm planning on doing with the things that we were talking about earlier too.
Yeah. And Lori, that idea of, and I really liked what you said in the beginning there. It's like, we come up with a topic, we talk about it for a little bit, you go off and explore it, and then we talk about it again. You know, and sometimes I feel like that's the missing piece, is that I think a lot of times, and you know, I've gone into schools to work with them, and they're like, well, can you teach us this week and this new thing next week and this thing the week after? And there's never any time to visit some of that former learning.
You have to go back and visit. You have to go back, especially people don't even they don't even know how to plug in their printers. Okay. Right. You have to go back, and then, you know, the frustration level. Oh, somebody was brave enough to say, I couldn't get this to work. And somebody else was like, me too. And we fixed it, right. You know, and then they went back and.
Right. And I think sometimes people feel like if you're not introducing some new concept or tool every time, that you're somehow wasting people's time. And I could argue you're wasting people's time by introducing something new every time. Instead of introducing several things looking for a deeper understanding so that people can implement that stuff. This isn't just about knowing every tool that's out there. It's about knowing what tools can give you support in what areas. You can always go search more tools out. That's easy. Any of us probably do that all day long. Go to Google and find something else. This app's not working, or this tool's not doing exactly what I thought. Let me go find something else. That's kind of a different skill than this kind of deeper evaluative. And I know I don't like to use the word evaluation anytime we're talking about this stuff, but evaluating a tool and its effectiveness for the student and the learner you're working with. And asking a lot of those questions and being comfortable not knowing everything, but being comfortable to poke around and learn.
There was actually something that you said at ATIA maybe 4 years ago.
It's great. Go ahead.
Makes
me scared, but go ahead. What'd I say?
You were talking about the book Switch, one of the Heath brother books.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about, how do you eat an elephant? You take one bite at a time. So giving those things in small chunks, which that I remember at that moment, well, of course I went and ordered the book, and then like really thinking, because I wanted to teach people all the things right up front, because I wanted them to know everything so that they could do everything. And that is just so overwhelming to people.
And you find, don't you find, Kelly, if you try to do that, it becomes very off-putting. People are going to shut down instantly. They're like, nah, I'm not going to. And I've had people say, well, I'll never know as much as you know. And I was like, I doubt that, because I think you could easily know 10 times as much as I do.
Right.
So don't assume that, but be inquisitive about things. That's different than knowing everything. It's asking these questions and kind of being open to learning more. Beth said she learned that the hard way, right? You can't learn everything. And it's so funny. I had this conversation with someone about these town halls. And they had said to me something along the lines of, don't you feel like you should be working harder as a group to present new information to each other? And I thought that's such an odd miss on the whole point of this. I mean, and I said to this person, you have now missed effectively the entire point of this. Because it's really about community and just sharing what I would affectionately term little nuggets of information throughout that make us all better. And it's not about one of us presenting for the whole time. That would actually ruin this.
Right.
It just would not be.
Actually, what makes this so great is that you don't have to feel prepped to come here. You don't feel like it's going to be, I mean, believe me, I mean, my camera's on and off because I'm multitasking while I'm doing this. And so I don't feel like I also don't have to feel like I'm going to insult someone who is presenting by not giving them my full attention. And so it's honoring the value of our time, our knowledge base as a larger community, and the ability to learn, from each other. And I think if one of the takeaways for me from this whole COVID stuff and everything that happened over the last, year and a half was that that community of learners was so important, to feeling connected to the work and to have a place to give, to not just learn from each other, but to also be able to vent to each other and all of that.
Right.
Support.
Exactly. I agree 100%. I just think there's so many any one of us, sorry, my computer's all out of whack. Here we go. I think any one of us we could go sit in a webinar at any point and just go and learn one topic for the whole time. But just this idea of community and along that line, I'll give a quick shout out because I see Shannon here and I want to talk about this, even though we'll talk about it later in the week too. we tried this format for another group. So we did this town hall approach for AT makers, like makers roundtable is what we called it. And it was the same kind of approach, which is the conversation and just what are some struggles and what's happening and what have you found that worked. And Shannon brought up an issue she was having with a consumer. And Shannon, do you want to share that story real fast? I love it. And I don't think anybody else here was in that group.
And I'm at my office today dressed up nice just so I can use my 3D printer. And we're printing our third trial of the fish hooker.
Oh my goodness.
Because Kip is working with Brian and myself. The three of us are now collaborating. We're bound and determined to find an easier way to hook fish when you're fishing. See the lake behind me. And they didn't realize how wiggly the worms are. So I actually videoed using the first one. And the worm is just like, so we're on our third trial with some really good input. So it's kind of fun. That's like my fun thing.
Oh my God, it's so much fun. So basically in this maker roundtable, Shannon says, I have an issue. And it's a young lady I'm working with who wants to hook a worm to go fishing independently. And this young lady has some tremors and she struggles to hook the worm. And so instantly, and Shannon, that's what made this so great. Instantly, you saw a whole group of people start looking up in the air and starting to think, and you actually felt wheels spinning. And Kip, one of the gentlemen that was there, came up with a 3D printed model of this little like chute that a worm would set in, and you could hook through it. And so I'm excited that you guys are still working through.
And then I actually cut that apart. I printed it, cut it apart, used the plastic, melting plastic to adapt it. And then he took that and re-imaged it. So it's going back and forth between all of us. It's a hoot.
It's great. It's such a great example of something that I didn't expect us to have finished by the next time we met, which is later this week. But it was a great indicator of kind of this iteration of problem solving and using the knowledge of the group to solve a problem. Oh, and then who just put that in? Naomi? Naomi just put the link in the chat for our next one, which happens this Wednesday at noon. And those happen once a month.
Mike, back to the previous topic.
Yeah.
One of the things, just because for me, I can learn everything, I just can't remember it. So it's a matter of relying on the other people. And when Joy passed away, one person in the quiet sent out a history project from New Hampshire, I think it was. I'll find the link and I'll email it to you. But it was fantastic because it's like Greg Vanderheiden, it's all of the old icons of our field, and they're the ones who started it. And the interesting thing is I have some time driving to that lake back and forth where I was listening to those their little interviews, and it was very fascinating because really the problems were the same there. They were faced with the same, we got to have better technology. So the tools change, but the process is the same, and the problems we're having with the process are the same. And so overall, it's more of like that increased awareness of how we need to network and really, like I said, build capacity so that people are working, not trying to hold the torch, but passing that torch amongst each other so that you're building that capacity.
Yeah, I think you're right, Shannon. It's always interesting when you go back and look at some of these process pieces that are out there. You know, you talk about set and you talk about quiet. And those things are just as relevant today as they were when they were first created. And technology has changed 1,000-fold since that.
Right.
And it didn't matter. And yet, you know, there's a part of me that thinks about that and says, you know, how do we change that fact that we are still talking about the same issues 15 and 20 years later?
Right.
And are we still talking about that because people are still not seeing the value of process?
And I think people are looking for that quick fix.
Yeah.
And if you don't have it, then you must have it. And so instead of slowing down in that process and really looking at the procedures and processes where we can do some repairs and fix a system, we're heading that tool route. We get stuck down that rabbit hole tool route, and we're not fixing the processes, and we're not really doing due diligence, collecting the data that we need to make those systemic changes.
Yeah,
So,
you're right. You're absolutely right. And until we can get people to see that,
right,
and not just see it, but actually embrace it. Because, you know, I don't know how many of you have had presentations or conversations with staff where they will tell you, I get it. Yeah, that sounds really important. We should do that. We should make a process and we should follow that process. But then in the very next breath, they say, but tell me about the newest app. And you want to take a step back and say, you can't. That's not what we're talking about.
And it's so funny because, I mean, it's not funny, right? I mean, we premised the whole, like, you know, I know you guys all know already about our book, but we premised the whole book around the idea that it's strategies first and not tools first. But the conversations that we had to have as a group of authors, we had to work through that. It wasn't like this automatic, like, oh, okay, because when we started, it was actually this list of tools that we were gonna, and if people ever looked back at your calendars, that, you know, some of this came out of like Chris Bouguet's team and their calendar of the day. And if you look back through those calendars, a lot of them are a tool. It's a tool. And we had to have a really deep conversation about why starting with the strategy or the procedure or the whatever was so important before you get to the tool. And some of it was that tools change and things, but it's also that in order for educators to own something, they have to see strategies are what benefit, like, you know, what kids like. That's how kids learn, right? Kids don't learn because of an app or a tool. They learn because of the application of that app or that tool using pedagogy and a strategy. And so it was such a critical part of those conversations and taking that, you know.
I'm gonna throw one more thing out there. So we have Larry Lewis coming in because one of the things I saw over the pandemic is accessibility really came to light, and everybody's talking about accessibility. And I had a little bit of frustration because then it was almost like we went so pro accessibility that we almost forgot about the tools. And so I really wanted somebody besides myself to say something to my non-AT collaborative partners about that, because we were really pouring everything into accessibility. And I said, Larry Lewis, how would you differentiate that accessibility versus the tools? And he said, well, think about a wheelchair. You can make a door accessible, but I still need the wheelchair to go through.
Right.
And I was like, that's what we need to get across is you need to build that accessibility. You also need the tools, but not just one tool. There's not a magic cure. And so I try to get my district people to look at all the tools they use, and then why are we putting our kids with disabilities under a microscope and saying, well, we bought you this, so you can only use this one. And so it's really having those big conversations about the accessibility and the classroom tools, but there's still tools for AT if my students are using them the way they're using them, because they're using them differently. But then they still get more tools, because how many different resources do our general ed kids get to use throughout the day, and why do you only get one? So so the pandemic, I think, brought to light the disparity in the tools that our kids do have. So we're more aware of the tools. We still need to talk about the process. So you almost need that triangular. It needs to be accessible, need to have the tool, and you need to have the process to determine. So, and you need to have accessibility. So I don't have an answer, but it's complicated.
It is, and it's complicated. And, Shannon, those are the right kind of questions, though, because those are those deeper kinds of questions about, not just accessible, which obviously is important, but usable. You go back to the when you see that information on the CAST website about designing for accessibility with poor, perceivable, operable, usable, and robust. Robust. Can I use it across the board with a range of supports? That's what makes something accessible. That's what's giving you the best chance of providing all of your learners, regardless of what they're using,
Right.
with opportunities to be successful.
But we're not giving everybody a wheelchair, so you're still going to need that. So
Right.
there are going to be those tools that are different, no matter how accessible your curriculum is.
Yeah, you could look at that as your accessible doorway, and then someone using a wheelchair, a wheeled walker, or a cane to move through it, right? Three different ways that someone might be supporting themselves as they go through. And are we building all of that in so that someone can?
And to add in that universal design for learning piece where it doesn't, it might also be that mom with this double side-by-side stroller too, right? Like it's that, so it's that piece of thinking beyond just one. It's that combination. It's exactly what you said, Shannon, about it, that triangulation or that Venn diagram kind of look of something, of having, of knowing, of that realization that if you design with accessibility in mind, then multiple people with different needs that have those needs that are, those needs are being met, maybe with that wheelchair, but it might also be somebody else, a different person that's coming along, and you didn't think of that, but because you designed it accessibly, it's going to work for them too.
Right. That's why I've really been enjoying the work that the sites group has been doing through CAST, is because they are working to provide a framework. I don't know if they use the word framework, but I'm just going to use it right now. A framework for different stakeholders in our school systems to think about inclusive strategies for technology. And so bringing together the ed tech, IT, and AT people to all have that conversation about, and it is kind of what you're going for, Shannon. It's that deeper connection of, I'm not just over here making it accessible, and I'm not just over here providing AT to a single student so they can be successful. I'm thinking about this as an integrated system of inclusive technology supports that cuts across all of those needs, and not retrofitting that in, but instead thinking about that from the beginning, from a whole district perspective, with leadership and training and purchasing and implementation all brought in, that you can have that conversation. And it's such an important piece. And it gives us that opportunity to bring in some of these other people. We talk about, Irene talks about it, and Kelly just talked about this idea of being one of one or one of two or three in a school. Well, if you could effectively pair your AT team with your ed tech coaches and your IT support group, and all have a similar kind of crystallized vision of what it is you're trying to accomplish, you've effectively multiplied your ability to provide that support. Maybe not every member of that team is as knowledgeable in every one area. I mean, I'm always quick to point out, don't ask me to set up a network in a school. I don't have a first clue of how to do that. I understand. You do? What a show off.
No.
Oh, I was like, Shannon, do you?
I'm going to throw somebody under the bus who's joined this meeting with me. Sarah is my new partner, Sarah King. And I had to hunt her down and drag her to Region 4 because her school was so good.
Here she comes. There she is. Hi, Sarah. How's it feel to be called out in the meeting?
So she actually came from a school, and hers was the best school in our region in regards to how they really did what we're talking about doing. Others say they did it, but her district really does what we're talking about, and it's pretty amazing.
Sarah,
Yeah.
how did you get there?
Oh, honestly, we had a new executive director over, and she didn't come from special education, but she was willing to listen. And so we had a teacher join our team, and she was not only a teacher, she's just very tech savvy anyway. So she was that liaison. So she worked between our tech department and then what we would need. And so I think a lot of the success was just because of her and like how great she is. But that helped a lot just to get a seat at the table, to like have people, so we weren't always constantly putting a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah. And isn't it always funny that all of these things that we talk about, how to get these services to work together and stuff, and Sarah nails it right on the head. Sometimes it's just the luck of the right person at the right spot and building a relationship with that person so that they see value in what the other people are doing. And they want to be part of that. And they want to build on that. I think those are, those are sometimes the hardest things to do.
And her name is Jade, but I feel like I'm a speech path. So sometimes she would just need to say something a certain way for me to be able to get it. Does that make sense? Because I'm not a teacher. So I just didn't know all those things. So it was really nice to have that collaboration.
And now going forward, you, Sarah, understand how maybe some other teachers would speak because you've gotten that experience from her. Is that, oh, well, maybe if I say it this way, or maybe if I approach them this way, it will make more sense and we can have this better collaboration.
Yeah, exactly.
Y'all ever saw that movie Spanglish? And he says he doesn't want the 4 as a restaurant owner because then it brings too much attention. Well, Sarah was the 4. Her Clear Creek was the 4. So it brought too much attention to her district, and we snuck her out.
Just scooped her up.
Yeah.
That's great.
He wanted a 3.9, never the 4.
Yeah. But you know what?
Then he was right under the radar, and then people would not mess up with his system. And as soon as he got the 4 and he was that top restaurant, everybody pulled his people away.
Yeah. But it's so valuable to hear about how these things work and how this kind of process, and this is process and capacity building is what we're talking about here. And I love how we end up here almost every time. We're not talking about new stuff or new apps or any other nonsense like that. We end up here because this is where the value is. This is where it's important. And each one of us can bring our little extra knowledge pieces into the equation. But we have to have that kind of partnership first of recognizing that and valuing that as far as being a collaborative solving problems. Good. Oh, I love it. Well, Sarah, I'm glad you joined us.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Glad to have you. Wonderful.
Yes.
As we start to get closer to the top of the hour, I realize we're slowly running out of time for the week. Anybody else have anything you want to bring up to the larger group before we wrap up? We have about 5 minutes. I have such a skill for grinding the conversation to a halt. I don't know why you guys let me keep leaving my microphone. You should just vote me out and just shut me down. That's it. I've done it. I've killed the conversation. Skill. It is a skill.
It's Monday.
It's what?
It's Monday.
It is Monday, right? I think, you know what? I think for our first time and getting this rolling, and I didn't give anybody a warning before this morning that this was happening. So I feel like we had a really good sized group. We had some great conversation. We'll be back at it next week on Monday. So tell your friends. Sarah, now that you've been called out, go find someone else and make them come. Kelly, I don't know where you are now. I like that Kelly just keeps showing up in a different spot. I think that's great too. Yeah, I figured it was your office. It wasn't your car anymore. I figured that much. Well, that's perfect. Excellent. All right, guys. So what we'll do is we will see each other back here next week at same time, and we will continue these conversations.
Thanks,
Hopefully
Mike.
you can join us on Wednesday for the Maker Roundtable. If not, I'll see you next Wednesday, next Monday,
Good
sorry.
to see everyone.
Yeah, it was good seeing
Bye. Thank
everybody.
you guys.
Bye, guys.
See y'all
Have a good
soon.
rest of the week.
You too.
Bye.